Keep your hands on the car. I'm doing my job.
Jose Fernandez and Martin Hyde.
Well, listening to this kumbaya tells you why 24 of the 25 most crime-ridden cities in America are run by Democrats. If we want to have better police officers, first off, we need to pay the best starting salaries, and that won't be done by coming up with flat cash sums when you go to your negotiations, because that keeps the base pay down, FYI. So we're still paying less than the county to start, so that's a bad idea. The report glossed over. You can't prove who said it. I mean, they're a police department, for Christ's sake. What they mean is they don't like what was said. And, we hear an awful lot of this kind of fake news. But, I'm very much all for local hires. Our deputy chief is local. Of course, our chief is not. Discussing policy is of no use if we don't discuss who is in charge of implementing policy. When we hired Chief DePino, Commissioner Shaw stipulated that any hire should live within the city, if you recall. Subsequently, Chief DePino bought a property over 80 miles away in Marco Island. No, it's relevant. How do I know that? Because she had a fender bender in Marco Island with a civilian in the city-owned vehicle, contrary to city regulations, and the city manager decided to take no action, despite a previous chief, Abbott, being written up by another Sarasota city manager, McNeese, for having an accident on Clark Road just a few years before. This Marie Antoinette attitude, which I submit is very bad for morale, is evidenced by the hundreds of negative reports about her on LEO affairs. And in this IACP report, she is the only one of 700 city employees who brings a dog to work every day and requires her taxpayer-paid staff to be on potty duty to take CC the poodle out whenever required. As to policy, or when the tragedy of a city being killed by a drunk driver who subsequently was found to have had his bond terms altered at the request of SBD, asked by the Herald Tribune for a comment, her response was, "I was on vacation." Seeing as this started with a bond hearing and ended with a tragic death, and this was over 3 months, how long was she on vacation for? And why is she contrary to normal protocol in identifying a CI anyway? Finally, on to the direct costs of her poor management and judgment. We have two officers in recent times who have been reinstated by arbitration panels, stating that they were incorrectly dismissed by her. The direct cost to city taxpayers, as you can see here, are over $400,000 in legal fees alone. And if you add in the back pay and pension entitlements, her rash and petulant firings have cost our city close to $1 million for these two guys alone, which is as much as it cost to give the whole department a 3% raise for the whole year. For 178 grand a year, we could have a chief that commands the respect of the whole staff. We don't. It's not personal, but this experiment in remote control policy or policing by proxy of our city manager, who was briefly a cop himself once, of course, has failed. And it's now time to face the facts, to go forward. An agent, we need to first go back to the drawing board in terms of who our chief is, because for all of the reasons mentioned here, Bernadette DePino is not that woman.
Bad boys, what you want?